legacy debt, dead infrastructure, and all of that. So what central bank did was to lend to clear that debt, right? And it was over some time. It's about 10 years old, even longer for some of them. However, Aki and I had some little discussions before the panel. A central bank has money, but it has money to deploy in maybe 3 or 4 ways. It can't go out of that. So a central bank can't directly lend to them without going through financial institutions. And it has to be done within the prism of whatever monetary policy and banking operations guidelines that there were at the time. So what the central bank did was to incentivize the banks to be able to help clear that debt, to do some of those things. So the person demanding the payback is really the financial institutions, because they are the ones obligated to us. So it's the financial institution that took the loan from central bank to lend to TCN and AEDC and co. And each one had its own moratorium and all of that. Now, some of those loans were to bring in or to bridge a metering issue. By the time you have issues around the seaports, and some meters come in, they don't come in, they are moribund at some point, and all of that. It's out of the ambit of a central bank. However, there still is a lot to be desired in terms of implementation of those interventions. And what the bank is doing now is to relook how it deploys its interventions. So there are about 3 interventions for power. There's the Electricity Stabilization Fund, right? And all 3 are macro projects, right? There's the Power and Aviation Fund, and there's even part of the Presidential Metering Initiative, right? So yes, we play there, and what is required is that for each one, all the central bank requires is, even if it's a guarantee from these banks to come, look, let's restructure or relook some of these loans, it can be done. It's based on discussion, that's 1. 2, the central bank also is, again, going away from direct lending on some of these things, because it's a short-term intervention. 10 years is not long when it comes to power, it's short, right? And I'm beginning to deploy that funding through some of the development agencies like DBN, right? Development Bank of Nigeria, Bank of Industry. So they are the ones who will swallow these intervention funds now and continue to pursue repayment. So as we gradually dial down, we empower them to pursue a few of these things a bit more. Just to give you some context, right? So, but yes, a central bank won't pursue you to pay it back. It's only the commercial banks who lent you in the first place that will do that, right? And then to the gentleman who talked of, so central banks, again, naturally don't go downstream, right? Off-takers, small players, no. What central banks look at is really development financing on a macro level, right? So if you do have, like has been alluded to with the fintech industry, what the central bank really did was to bring up regulatory sandbox environment where investors, fintech agencies, technology people can, you can play with the thing before it goes live. Let's look at all the flaws, right, that can happen. If that sandbox environment worked well, it's something that can be deployed to, say, power systems. It's something that was also deployed to agriculture, right? Some of the very big gains that the central bank has had in funding of agric, what's the Anchor Bora programs and all of that, it's because of that sandbox environment. So what a central bank really does, like I said, is it only incentivizes players to come into that space and do a few things, but it will lead by example. But by the time you're going downstream, you're beginning to be both judge, jury, and executioner in an area where really isn't your forte. It means that a central bank will start looking for people like engineer here to come and start chasing, and that's not what we do. We're regulators, right? A football referee can't also be the best FIFA footballer men, or I mean, it just doesn't happen, right? But what can happen is that we do have very robust development financing officers. So whatever ideas you have, it can be discussed, and then what the central bank might do is recommend who we can link you to continue those discussions, come up with a scalable, workable model, come back, and then see what discussions can happen. Right? I hope that addresses a few of the things. I don't know if we have some time for a few more questions from our colleagues online. There are no questions online. Okay, and then to the gentleman from Next Year, you did, you gave us some very intense comments, right? And well, all players. Yes, we do have to acknowledge that the system we have worked on so far has failed, right? Acknowledge that, accept that, look, there needs to be a lot more done, right? If you talk of ownership of the industry, before now it was purely government. This discussion of private sector coming in is a recent conversation. I do think that it needs to go full cycle, right? It needs to mature because we're leaving a system that we know that didn't work into a system that we don't know, and we're not quite sure how it happens. So let me give you an example. So for instance, we've said here, there's no consequence for power theft. There's nothing in our laws that says if you divert power from here to here, it counts as economic crime. It's not there. Is there? Okay, so what is punishable by? And then the man who diverts it can afford the 200K. So what I mean is, I'm not saying that the punishment is just not, it's not there. It's like saying pay 50,000 naira for spray money. I'm sprayed 10 million, you just pay 50. I'll keep spraying. Do you understand my point? So the punishment is like, is mouthed, is just written. Who's really going to pursue you for paying? And then I get charged 200,000, but the guy who wants to implement, I give him 2K or 5K, and that's the end of it. Right? So what I see is that there's a failing, and this is for all of us. So these are my own comments by way of rounding up, and then we'll have our chance at our 2 cents. Right? So there is a failing of that trust deficit that is existing, is a failing of the social contract that exists between a government and its citizens and all the players there. It's been a failing of that social contract. Power is a responsibility of a nation to its citizens. It's not for any citizen to go and partake in metering of his community and doesn't get any tax return for it. And then that meter still belongs to AEDC or TCN, or it belongs to government. I buy the meter, but it's still the property of government. I don't even get any rebate for it. It's not even acknowledged that I bought it. It's like they're doing me a favor. So there's a failing of that social contract, right? And I guess that's where all of the comments about shifting mindsets needs to happen. All right, so once we're able to shift mindsets, we then go into things around how would the modalities for this changes, what are the modalities and things we need to put in place? Before we start talking money, timelines, measurement and evaluation, and whatever impact that it's supposed to have. But when all these M's align, I'm sure that we'll have a power system or a power industry to be proud of. But I thank you for your comments. And with that being said, let me give the panelists some 2 minutes to give your final word to the audience, and then we can wrap up. Right? No, let me start from Ogwem. As the only lady in the house, give us your 2 cents, and let's just wrap up.
Yep. I think that what has me very excited about building a smart grid is that there has been a lot of movement, both in the technology space, in the regulatory and policy space. We're having these conversations. We have the right people oftentimes in the room to move things forward. And so with that, I think I'm optimistic, and I think the future is quite promising when it comes to the digital transformation of the grid. And at Shift and at STEMICO, especially given our recent acquisition merger, STEMICO has decade-plus experience in metering and grid technologies, but with Shift, they get we get to join forces with a team that is local. Shift gets to take pride in being a Nigerian-based organization, Nigerian-based team with talent that intimately understands Nigerian infrastructure. So altogether, again, we're excited. I'm excited to have been part of this conversation, and I do think that where there's many challenges, that makes for a lot of opportunity.
I do agree. I do agree.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being on the panel. Engineer.
Yes, I think, as you have said earlier on, that it is the responsibility of the government to provide stable and reliable electricity for citizens. Yes, and also in the provisions of the reliable, the most important commodity for a citizen, government needs to do what is necessary.
Exactly.
At this time. And apart from the regulations which we believe we can extend the scope to meet up with the smart grid development, I think government can come up with enabling law like Power Infrastructure Modernization Act. This will go a long way to guide the development of smart grid development.
In a certain direction.
In certain directions.
Yeah.
So if we can have Power Infrastructure Modernization, it will deal with all the issue concerns in the development of smart grid.
Yes.
And the regulators, they are there with their regulations and compliance issues on how to make sure that all these laws are complied with necessary punitive measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Aki?
So I think for me, I'm just going to take it from where engineer has left off by just saying that, again, this is a problem that only the government cannot solve it.
Exactly.
The private sector also needs to come in to play a role. We've seen how the role of incumbents and startups in the fintech space has been able to drive innovation and development. I think we need that sort of mindset shift in the electricity space as well, where the private sector need to also come in a way where we enable the environment for startups, for newer private companies to explore the potential of these digital technologies and be able to allow us to, derive the benefit that ensures that as on an holistic view, we have a smart grid, but in a very, very decentralized way, we are using local and digital solutions to solve immediate problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an intense, very engaging session with this group of panelists, and I would implore that we give them a fantastic round of applause. As an audience, you have also been very, very good. Your ability to ensure that the central bank also responds to your questions I've not seen any audience that has done that before. So I thank you for your time. And so by way of wrap up, we've spent the better part of almost 2 good hours discussing the overview of what smart grids are like, some of the existing policy and regulatory issues that the industry has put in place, most especially some of the things with regards to the new act of the Electricity Act of 2023. From regulatory frameworks, we discussed intensively about investments and financing models. We talked of green bonds, sukuks, franchising models, PPP, asset financing, and the likes. And then from there, we moved to perhaps one of the most engaging things for me, and I was very happy, is that the critical thing that had come out was the need for constant stakeholder engagement in order to shift mindsets of who's responsible for what and who's going to play what, so that we can manage expectations as well as ensure that we're designing and developing a smart grid that solves our problems for today and is relevant still for tomorrow. A smart grid that is also viable to investors to come in and partake, as well as strategies for implementing that smart grid with real-life examples from all of our panelists here. And then at the end of the day, the much we didn't speak on was perhaps what kinds of impact assessment or measurement frameworks need to be put in place, but that SCADA and some of the data that we're collecting from the market would help us do. So we're able to do some level of forward guidance as well as forecasting for both investors, regulators, government, and end users. And then from next year, we had a very resounding, would I say, closing remarks where he tried to prick our consciousness with regards to what our responsibilities are and what we need to do as a matter of national urgency to ensure that this Nigerian electricity and power industry develops in the direction in which we want it. That's been it from all of us here. It's been a fantastic time anchoring this 101st Power Dialogue. And to next year, I want to say well done. Thank you for having us. And perhaps the next one would have persons from NEC, the regulators, people who talk about financing, and then what are the critical things that need to be done so that we can start to address some of the depth of skill gaps, capacity development, what kinds of engineering frameworks and faculties do we need to put in place in our universities of technology so that we're churning out the graduates to man this industry now and into the future. That's been it from us. It's been fantastic. My name is Obi, and it's been my pleasure being your anchor and moderator on this panel. Thank you very much.
All right, you can keep the clapping, please. Clap for them. They did a very nice job today. All right, my name is Martins Eze. I work with the Electricity Hub. I wish to thank the audience for participating in today's dialogue. It has been an interesting and educative topic. So thank you everyone for participating. To our online audience, thank you very much for participating. Okay, we'll be having our next Power Dialogue in January. That will be the 102nd Power Dialogue. So, and we hope that you'll join us in January for the dialogue. Thank you everyone for being part of the dialogue. We have refreshment at the back. Before you go, please make sure you pick your refreshment. Also network. Thank you very much and have a nice evening. Bye.